Sorry I've been slacking on you guys in the videos lately. I just needed to take a little break and have had a lot going on. Or my wife has had stuff going on, so I've been watching the kids while she's been doing some photography stuff. And so I don't have anything car related going on this weekend. I washed the car this morning. I'm going to wash the M3 this afternoon. There's a few things that I want to do, but I've got a new exhaust coming for the GT3, new rear section that I want to try out. And then I've got a sort of an epic stereo, the DIY install that I've been working on, so that video is coming up. But what I really want to focus on here this next few weeks is I really want to get the website roughed in so I can just start working on content. So if you're a fan of my cars but not a fan of me, you probably want to skip this video. I really feel the need to have sort of an explanation of me and who I am. I don't think that I'm worthy to sit here and talk to the camera and tell my whole life story. But I think that if you're going to be interested in this site and interested in my idea of Obsessed Garage, then you're going to have to, you're going to have to, but I'm going to have to convey this message and tell the story. So this is the next sort of video in the progression of videos where I sort of tell my life story. And forgive me, I'm in the house, not in the garage. It's 97 degrees with 60 or 70% humidity. Even with the air conditioning on in the garage, the fan's going, it's still too hot. I'd be pouring in sweat. So I tried to be as artistic as I could and set up a spot in the house where I had proper lighting. So that's why I'm sitting here in my living room talking to you on the camera. So today's video is about family and my attempt at building what I would call or classify as amazing family. And one of the questions I get most often on these videos is, how the heck do you have this much time? Like, how do you have time to play in the garage, make these videos, work, and still not completely neglect your family? And I'll be honest, it's hard for me because I am very passionate, very obsessive, and it's a difficult sort of concept for me to not go all in on whatever I'm doing. So part of my whole OCD meltdown was a bunch of sort of self-discovery on what are my priorities supposed to be, what should be number one, what should be number two, what should be number three, and I had let things get out of whack, and now I make a really conscious effort. It sounds super warm and fuzzy, and something I would have laughed at if I would have been I laughed at myself if I'd heard myself talking about this, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. But I think it's necessary for guys like me or guys like us, the sort of the passionate, obsessive people that have a tendency to be obsessive, to really concentrate, or at least keep in the back of my mind what my priorities are supposed to be. And then that'll help me in all aspects of life. So I'm going to explain my philosophy on how I balance family, work, friends, and this new sort of endeavor of this sharing experience of Obsessed Garage. And you've seen my kids in the videos, and I'm going to sort of explain my philosophy. I'm not saying it's right. I would guess. I don't think I'd call it wrong, but I've been criticized a bit for there's no way you could spend any time with your family or be family oriented and do what you're doing. So I'm going to try to explain that story to you to hopefully, if you don't like me and think that I'm a total goof or think that I'm arrogant or think that I'm stuck up or whatever you want to call me. Hopefully this will help you, again, understand a little bit more about who I am and what makes me tick. So I'm going to tell you the story of my family, my wife and kids, and how that all started. This story starts late 2002, early 2003. I played volleyball in college, and so when I graduated and moved to Orlando, naturally, my main hobbies were cars, home theater, because that's what I was doing at the time, selling home theater. I had a AP2 S2000, or AP1 S2000, sorry, a new Formula Red one. And I played volleyball. That's what I did. Just played everywhere, mostly indoor. I played some beach, but look at me, I'm white, pasty. I don't do well in the sun. We even lathered up in sunscreen. I have played quite a bit of beach volleyball, but I played indoor, and I was an outside hitter, and that's just what I did. And I know it's a girl sport, but I didn't grow until I was 17, so I missed out on I'll tell you that my sports story at some point. But I missed out on a lot of sports that I like to think I could have been good at because I didn't grow and I was too scared to try out. So there was there's different open gyms all over the place, and I would play. Some were good, some were bad, some were really bad, and I would go and play at this place called the Ocoee Rec Center, which is just in sort of the west side of Orlando. It had blue rubber courts, and it was just like a little community rec center where they actually happened to have a volleyball court where they had the holes in the ground so you could put the poles in. And I would go there and just sort of work on things. And I had a tendency to sort of work on stuff by myself, again, being obsessed, all or nothing. And then I'd like to sort of jump in and play a few games, and so I think I'd work on passing, or I'd work on my approach, or work on my swing, or something like that. You would be surprised that there's actually a lot of technical stuff in the sport of volleyball. So I was, I'd been there I'd been going there for a year or so. And my my idea of dating didn't really jive with what girls thought, where it was an idea of dating, which was they should come to me. I'm not going to ask them, and as you might imagine, that doesn't work, especially for a guy that looks like me. So, I'm not the most approachable person in the world, especially when I was in my early 20s. I was even less approachable than I am today. So, probably looked even goofier than I do now. But there was this girl, and we were playing, and she was pretty good. She was, everybody there was terrible except for me and this girl. And she was, I'm like, man, this girl's pretty good. But I really didn't think much of it. And so I was working on my jump serve, and I'm just hammering the ball. And she, shanked a couple of passes, sort of went off her arms, and she started to get mad. So then, naturally, she's like, "Bring it." So I'm like, "All right, I'll bring it." So I started hitting it even harder, and this chick was taking it, man. I mean, I did play at Villanova. I was pretty decent. And one thing I was good at was hitting and jump serving, and I literally just, I'm 6'2", 225, not in the fat shape I am now, but in great shape. Had a 30+ inch vert, and was just hammering the ball at her. And eventually she started passing it, but she was getting mad. She was a red hair girl, so somehow we got on the same team. And she says it was her, her doing, because I wasn't going to ask her out. I don't know how to do that. The only few times I've done that in my life, it didn't work so well. So after that game, we went off to the side, and everybody kind of realigned the teams and all that stuff, or maybe another team was playing, and we were over there just sort of hitting on the other net. And she said, "Well, do you play basketball?" And I'm like, "No, terrible. I mean, I can play basketball, but I'm not very good. At least my standard of good. I can show up on a court and play 5-on-5, but I'm not particularly gifted at shooting. I think I have a depth perception issue. At least that's what I blame it on. It's probably just I didn't play enough. I could dunk, but I couldn't. I can't shoot to save my life. So she's like, well, do you play basketball? And I'm like, no, I'm terrible. And I think that diffused, she says that diffused the argument, because when I went there, I went there to work on stuff. I went there to play. I wasn't there to make friends. And like I said, I'm not particularly approachable. And I don't care who's on the court. I mean, if you're in the way and you get hit in the face with the ball, that's not my fault. At least that's what my attitude was at the time. So I think I had sort of developed this reputation of being a bit of kind of a jerk. And when really that was the perception, but I like to think of myself as a super nice guy. And I just don't sort of walk around smiling ear to ear all the time. So, and then I'm serious about stuff, but I'm not argumentative. I'm not picking fights. I'm not, I'm just trying to get a job done because I'm passionate about it. So she worked herself on. We got on the same team, and basically what we were doing is playing 2-on-6, and with maybe a couple other idiots that were on the court with us. And somehow it was clear that she steered me, but we had just started wakeboarding, my buddy and I. And she's like, well, so what do you do for fun? And I'm like, well, we've been wakeboarding lately. We're not very good, but we just started. And she said, oh, man, I'd love to wakeboard. And so I said, well, shoot, we're going out tomorrow. You want to go? And she said, yeah. So she went, and then we dated for, forever, or dated for the last sort of 3 weeks she was in town. And then I had to figure out what I was going to do after that. So we met on the volleyball court, and went to went wakeboarding, and then went to the movies, and then did a couple of other things, and just hung out until she went back to school. And she was 23 or 22 and a half, 23. I was 23 and a half or 24 ish, and she was going to Lynn University, and she was playing volleyball there, at Division II. She had played basketball and Division II basketball, and then played volleyball for Lynn down in Boca Raton. So when she left to go to school, well, I was sort of just decided I was going to start driving down there. So I drove down. It's about 3 hours, a couple hundred miles, and I made the mistake of leasing my AP1 S2000. So I was driving back and forth all the time. I usually had, I think it was like Tuesdays and Wednesdays off from when I was selling home theater, and I would drive down to Lynn and then just sort of drive back up that night and sort of stay down there in the dorm room. And she was really reluctant. Once again, I'm all in. So she was really reluctant to commit to anything. Where I'm like, well, what's the deal? Let's go. I mean, let's commit. And because I'm all or nothing as usual. To the point to where I'd kind of gotten in trouble with some of my friends because I couldn't focus on anything else but her. And she says that I duped her into that, like super nice and did all kinds of nice stuff, and that I was, I was pulling the wool over her eyes. I said, maybe I did, I don't know, but she eventually, she was getting her MBA, and after volleyball was over, there was no real reason for her to go back to school. So I was driving back and forth for maybe, I guess it was probably a semester, and then the second semester she sort of finished up her MBA, distance learning, and she when she came back, she lived with her parents, and then we getting more and more serious, and then eventually we got engaged, and I sold this is a funny little side story. I had my new Formula Retta AP1 S2000 was lowered, had 16-inch bronze CE28 ends, hard top, from factory front lip, Mugen exhaust, Mugen intake, a lot of other sort of cool stuff on the car, and she. We were one of our first dates. She is a 6-speed manual, greatest transmission ever in AP1S or AP2 and AP1 S2000. And she said, "Well, I want to drive your car." And I'm like, you guys know me. I'm like, eh. But she's dating her for a short period of time, and I'm like, well, okay. I'm like, well, I got to get gas, so we stopped for gas, and then I'm like, are you sure you want to drive? And she said, yeah, I want to drive. You can teach me how to drive a stick, right? And I'm like, oh, but again, I'm a pansy, so I'm like, oh, you don't know how to drive a stick? I don't know if this is the kind of car to learn how to drive on. And she's like, no, don't worry about it. I can learn. I'm a quick learner. You know how to. You're a good driver, so you can teach me how to do it. So I'm pumping gas. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what did I get myself into? And then so she's sitting there pretending like she's fumbling, trying to figure out how to use the clutch. And then we go to take off. So I start explaining to her, and she's playing it up. She's saying, "Oh, so this is the clutch, and okay, this is how I do it." And then we started it up. I said, "Okay, well, let's do it." And bang, she took off and drove like a champ. So she got me really good, and she knew that she could get me, but messed with me quite a bit on that. Didn't know how to drive, but had been, her first car was a stick. So she had a Civic EX, I think. So she came back from school, was living with her parents. We got engaged. We're sort of traditional Christian couple, and we weren't going to live together. I was living with my buddy Charles still, and we started looking for houses. And I don't know if you guys remember, so we got married. We were getting married and looking in sort of early 2005 for a house, and we're getting married in 2006. So we went out to West Orlando, a place, a town called Claremont, and you would think that you could just, so we got a realtor and went and started searching around for houses, and everywhere we went, if you guys weren't familiar, Las Vegas, Orlando, Miami, these big boom areas of the country where every idiot was buying 3 or 4 homes, trying to flip them, you couldn't buy a house. Like, we would go out to an empty field with a spec home or a model home on it, and they would literally laugh at us as we walked in and said, yeah, we'd be interested in looking and maybe building a house. And they would look at us and just say, what are you, nuts? You can't buy a house. These are all sold. I'm like, what do you mean they're all sold? These are all just a bunch of dirt. There's 350 lots. I said, well, we have an 18-month waiting list. Every single one of these is sold. And so we went from community to community to community, and they were all same story. And there was dozens of these communities, cookie-cutter Florida-type communities. And we had a budget of about $220,000 to $250,000, and at the time that didn't buy you very much, which I know they wouldn't buy anything in a big city. But we're in sort of rural West Orlando. You would think $250,000 would get you a nice house. We had our down payment, and it was our 20% down, and we were sort of going to do the responsible thing. So I was just interviewing with Merrill Lynch, and I was sort of getting the job, not getting the job. And I'll tell you that whole story of it took me a year and a half to get a job there, but we caught wind of a community that they had, that KB Home had just purchased, acreage from another company and the developer. And so I went over to luckily the KB Home office was right next to my store, the Sound Advice store. And I went in there and said, hey, I'd like to get in on the lottery, because what they were doing was you'd have a lottery on the first 10 lots, and they raise the price, and another lottery. So you had this, the quicker you got your financials in, the quicker you got your name on the list, the quicker you got your spot. So we filled out all our stuff, didn't know what the models were going to be, didn't really know much about. Knew a little bit about KB Home because we went to a couple of communities and looked at some model homes, and knew the area, knew where it was going to be, because we saw the streets and the dirt, and saw the KB Home sign. And so we put our name in, and sure enough, we got the number 2 lottery pick, because I guess just because of timing and luck. So we show up, I'm 25, she's 24, we look like our 15. We show up, there's like 200 people there in this tent out in this giant sand field with street sand and the KB Home signs. and they, all these people are there with, there's all these investors, and they're not supposed to be. It's supposed to be for single family homes. Investors aren't supposed to be allowed to purchase, but no one really checked that stuff. So we get there, and they stand up and they say, okay, we're gonna get sort of choose or give away the first lot. And here's the pricing. So they hand you the pricing there, and they show you all the lots that are premiums. And we didn't want a premium. We just wanted a square lot that we could put our house on. And we wanted whatever the smallest house was going to be, whatever that option was. So they gave us sort of preliminary pricing on the lots, and we said, well, this lot looks the same as that lot. Why is that lot $20,000 more? So we want this lot. And so we picked out our lot, and then they said, okay, who has number one? Everybody looks around. Number one? Who's the number one pick? Guy didn't show up, or family didn't. Whoever had it didn't show up. He said, okay, who has number two? So we look around and we raise our hands. and I think, if I remember correctly, I might be making this up, but I think someone said, I'll give you 40 grand for that spot. And we're like, shoot, but we knew that we wanted, this is where we're going to live, this is what we wanted to do. And we knew that prices were still rising, and who the heck knows when they were going to end. And so we stand, we look around, everybody goes, oh, because it looked like two punk kids got the number two spot. So we picked the house, built the house. It was 1,800 square feet. We paid $283,000 for it, and it was laminate floors or linoleum floors, laminate countertops, really basic stuff. We upgraded the cabinets a little bit. It was a really sort of nice, very, very nice home for a 20-something year old, two kids. And we really liked that home. The layout was great. It didn't have like a formal dining and living room, which we didn't want. We just wanted a few big rooms. So it was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. 2-car garage. So I should have done the 3-car option, which I didn't do. It was $10,000 more, but we were freaking out because we had gotten up to 280-something thousand when our budget was, say, 225. So we closed on that house in December of 2005. We got married in March of 2006. So what happened is I moved in first. And painted and sort of did some improvements, got the house sort of ready to go. Obviously I'm doing everything myself because I'm 25 and don't have any money. So I had actually married. I had gotten the job at Merrill Lynch in April of 2005. So I'd already started at Merrill Lynch. We bought the home before I started at Merrill. Then they finished building the home in December of that year, and then we got married in March. So I always started my commute, so it just made sense for me to be in Claremont to commute up to my office, which was closer than where she was living with her parents and then teaching. So she was teaching, coaching. I was just started at Merrill Lynch, so it was a cold call machine. And the great part, I think one of the really great things about us, and part of the reason why I'm afforded so much ability is, we're very much different. She's very outgoing. She likes to do things, fun stuff. I'm very introverted. Don't like to do anything. She's very personable, where I tend to not be so much, and she's very PC, where I'm just speak my mind. So she was again teaching and coaching, but one of the great things about us is that we're able to do our own thing, but then come back together. Do our own thing, come back together. So she was coaching and teaching, so she was working 60, 70 hours a week. She would get there early, teach all day, coach in the evening, come home, crash. So I was but I was working, say, from 7 to 5, cold calling and sending out mailers. And I would come home a lot of times to be hand addressing envelopes to prospective clients and things like that. So I did, while she was coaching volleyball and the assistant coach for basketball, and they were like state champion caliber teams. So the seasons would run long, they would overlap. So at times she would coach from 3 to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, depending on, what team she had or whether she was assistant or head coach. So I did the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, and we didn't have kids, so you might imagine, I'm a maniac about cleanliness and organization. And so I did everything. I did it on, didn't think anything of it, because it was sort of a natural transition after we got married that when I lived in my buddy's house, I did all the cleaning and cooked for myself and didn't rely on anybody. So we don't have that typical sort of domestic relationship where she cooks and cleans and I go and make the money. Actually, she was making considerably more money than I was. $20,000-$30,000 more. So we're married, no kids. We're traveling a little bit here and there. I'm making $45,000-$50,000. She's making $60,000 or $70,000. I think she was making $50,000 or $60,000. So maybe she was making $10,000 or $20,000 more than me. So we're doing okay. Combined, I think the first year we made like $87,000 or something like that. And we got our $280,000 house with our $200,000 mortgage, and so there wasn't tons of cash to go around, but there was, we were okay. And actually, I forgot to mention one point. I had gotten 6 tickets inside of 2 years living in Florida. And I'd gotten a ticket on my Yamaha YZF R6, my motorcycle, like the maiden voyage, the first time I took it out and actually went to Redline and was scared to death. And I got pulled over for doing like 87 and a 35, so that was like a $600 ticket. I had to go to 12-hour, like the drunk driving, reckless driving school and the whole deal. And I got a ticket the next day in my S2000. So what I had done, I'd sold everything. I sold the S2000, I sold the motorcycle, I sold my wheels, sold everything, and that's sort of what I used to buy the ring. That and some electronics that I bought right before I left, and was able to sort of flip because I was no longer working with the company. So. The car I was driving at the time was a 2002 Acura RSX Type S, so I was kind of miserable. We're doing okay. I'm working like a slave, wondering every day, what did I get myself into? I was making $100,000 selling TVs, which I loved, and designing home theater. Loved the job, liked the people there. It was fantastic, and yet here I am driving a Acura, nice car, but a massive step down from the S2000. I'm doing this job where I'm studying my brains out. I'm stuffing envelopes and cold calling all day. She's out running around, doing, and I have to be there to watch some of her games and stuff like that. And I'm driving an hour each way to my office because we had to be sort of halfway. And so it was one of those times. I think back, we were doing great. Michelle and I were great. We like I said, we had a system going, and we just worked, and we knew what we needed to do in order to sort of get to the next level in life, and so we were able to be sort of independent, but then again come back together. Independent, come back together. So we started doing a little bit better. She was making a little bit more doing summer camp and everything, and then I started to make a little bit more because I started to sort of do well in the training program. I'd hit some bonuses, and I was always scheming of how am I going to get the next thing? How am I going to improve the house? And then how are we going to how am I going to get the next car? And I think I made it maybe 9 months with that Acura, which was paid off, and paid off my student loans, and we had our down payment on our house. So we was doing, I think I owed about $60,000 or $70,000 in student loans. So we did the responsible thing. We had all that paid off, even though we weren't making a ton. Granted, making $80,000 or $100,000 10 years ago was it was a decent amount of money for a couple of 25, 26-year-olds. I understand that, but in comparison to how we're doing now, it was considerably different. But we were doing as well as any of our friends, and or better. And our house was nice and clean and organized, and we set up and built ourselves a nice spot, and had a good system going. I was still playing beach volleyball, or playing volleyball a lot. She would play with me. We'd go mountain bike. We do all kinds of cool stuff. So, and I was close to my friends in West Orlando, so we'd go and hang out with them a lot. So we finally, again, I started doing it a little bit better. So I'd convinced her I can get another S2000. I wanted an AP2 S2000, and I wanted to buy it this time instead of leasing it after the lesson learned. I had this dream that you could lease a car and then just get a new one, but the problem is when you're in Florida, everything's 50 miles from where you live, so that didn't work out so well. So I went up to the dealer and found an S2000, negotiated the deal, and she let me do it and got that. And I really didn't have a lot of money to do all kinds of modifications. So the car was relatively stock. I eventually put the suspension on it, hard top, front lip protector, but it was slow. It wasn't like you see me today where I just started ordering crap. As I'd hit a bonus or something, for bringing in, new clients, and then clients started to actually pay me, because Merrill Lynch starts you at a small salary, and so I started to modify that car, and the beauty of it was I was driving 40 miles each way. She was still working like a slave, and the beauty of it was that it got like 26 or 7 miles a gallon, super cheap to change the oil, and I'd pay me that car. That's the car, like I said, where I really started to get into detailing. So the exterior was fantastic. So even though I ended up selling it with 135,000 miles, it looked like it was brand new. So fast forward a few years, we were married for 5 years, living in Claremont, and then in 2010, actually it'd been 2009, I guess, she says, well, it's time. And I'm like, what do you mean it's time? Well, it's time to have a baby. And I'm like, well, shoot, I don't know that I'm ready for all that. I didn't even really thought about it. And in my mind, we were still kids, and we didn't have time, or running around like maniacs. And that how I just got this S2000. How am I gonna ever be able to drive this kid around anywhere, because it's a 2-seater? And notice how everything always comes back to cars with me. Maybe it shouldn't, but it does. Unfortunately, it does. And she had an Accord EX. It was paid for, and we had owned the S2000, and so the question was, well, okay, if we have a kid, what the heck are we going to do with it during the day? Because we can't afford to. I was making like $70,000. I can't afford to stay home. And at the time, I wasn't the manager of the office. We'd just come out of 2008, 2009, so I was making squat, and still working like a maniac, trying to find clients and convince people that I was educated, and working on different designations and things like that. And so I'm like, well, I don't even know what that means. What would that look like? And so we started looking at daycares and stuff like that. And so we had a contract. This is the first contract we had. Literally a written contract that if she gets a baby, I get an M3. I don't know how I was going to pay for that. I don't know how I was going to pay for either one of them. But somehow I'd convinced myself this was the time I'm coming up on 30 years old. I'd just gotten the management position then, and so she got pregnant in March, because we had Ryan on Christmas. So the deal was actually it wasn't an M3. I'm sorry, it was a Audi S4. So this is 2009, then sort of I was ordering the car come, let's see, when did I get? So I got in May of 2011. Yeah. So I could order the car after the baby, or the car couldn't come until after the baby. So I decided I wanted an Audi S4. I was going to sell my S2000. That's right. I was going to sell my S2000, take the S4, because the S4 was more practical than the M3. It got 20-something miles per gallon. I decided I was going to order a Sepang Blue, which is a Audi exclusive color. You paid a little bit extra for. I think the car sort of came out at like $60,000. So it was my sort of reward for, I don't know what, but my reward for letting her have a baby, which seems a little odd, but that's how we do things. And then my reward, because I'd become the manager of the office, I'd made it through the program, survived 2008, and again, we're probably combined making $120,000, but I'd convinced myself that we could afford to buy this S4. So I ordered the S4, and there was nothing, no commission number or whatever you want to call it, PO number, or what, I forget what Audi called it. No information. Months went by. I think I ordered it in like May or June of 2010. Ryan was due in December, and so the car would. And I knew it was going to take 6 months or so. So the car would come in early, especially since I was doing an exclusive color in early 2011, and so the dealer just couldn't, because this was the end of the B8 cycle. Or coming to the end of the B8 cycle. No, it wasn't. It was the middle of the B8 cycle. The B8 was new in 2010. So I think what happened is they pushed all the exclusive colors to the back. So we had like a 14-month build time. At least that's what the computer was saying. So I'm like, well, I gotta wait. But this is like one of my ultimate dream cars: S4, M3, 911. And I'm getting the first one. This was the progression, and the problem is that I couldn't get it. I wanted it, but I couldn't get it. I wanted a manual, and I wanted some very specific things, and you just couldn't buy that on the lot. Especially the S4s. Audi doesn't keep a lot of inventory. So I'm stressing out about this, and it comes November, and I still got nothing. Again, still got no information. December. Ryan, right before Ryan came, no, I think it was after Ryan. Ryan was born on Christmas Day, but right after Ryan was born, I was like woke up in the middle of the night or something, and probably from him, and I couldn't sleep. I'm like, I need to get an M3. So I was getting a relatively loaded S4 that was $62,000, and I decided, well, maybe I should get an M3. And I'm telling you, this was divine intervention here. I open the computer, and I'm on on one of the M3 forum I go to, and boom, there's a video right there. Audi RS4 Audi RS5 versus E92 M3 on Top Gear, on YouTube. And the M3 just decimates it. And I'm like, wow, man. I mean, and that's an RS, and it's RS5, and I'm getting an S4. And so I decided what I need to do is I need to get a stripped-down version of the M3, because M3 was more money-based price. So I basically decided I was going to get what you would call a stripper M3. All I got was leather seats, competition package, and metallic paint. Those are sort of the only thing. iPod adapter. Those are the only 4 options that I got. So it came out to out the door was about $65,000 because I was able to get it at invoice and the whole thing. So I called, canceled the Audi order, and my M3 showed up in May at the Performance Delivery Center of that year. And so now I'm living the dream. And by the way, I got to keep my S2000 because naturally you couldn't drive the M3, 40 miles each way. It was just too inefficient. So I had a stock S2000, and then I was going to sort of do some modifications to the M3. So, but again, slow, steady modifications. Again, ramping up the speed of modifications, but slow and steady. So, my son's born, and we live in Claremont. I have the M3. She's working. We eventually trade her car because we can't, you can't put a baby in the back seat forever. So we traded her car for a four-door Audi A4. So we're living the dream. She has an A4. I have the S2000 I drive every day. M3 I drive on the weekends and occasionally, and shine it with a microfiber diaper. And we got our son, and he's a terror. And he wasn't bad, but he was this giant baby, mega baby. He was born, he was 9 pounds, 6 ounces, born on Christmas Day. And Ryan Mark Mormon, and he softened my heart, because I was a pretty rough dude. And she softened me, and then he softened me up even more. And so this little guy comes, and he's doing everything with me. He's wearing my shoes, my ties. He's running to the door when Daddy comes home. But he's an exceptional little guy. But he's really big for his age, or big for compared to his age group. So the contract was done. She got the baby. She got the kid. I guess we both got the kid. I got the M3. Living the dream, right? Then something happens. She decides. Actually, what happens? She had taken, because she was a coach. She'd won multiple state championships. I mean, my wife is a freaking winner, man. She beats me at everything. Drives me nuts, and doesn't even try. She's a superior athlete of the family. And, I can beat her at basketball if I just muscle it, but if we play 10 games, she's going to beat me 8 out of 10. She's legit. She's in the Hall of Fame at Lynn University, and, valedictorian, or whatever you want to call it, salutatorian, or whatever, MBA. Was going to go to medical school, but decided against it. And, the teacher extraordinary, everybody loves her. And she's, again, winning state championships and with her teams that they never really won before. She'd won state championships when she played. So she's working, she's doing great, and she calls me up and says, "Matt, I don't think I'm going to be able to go back to work." And I'm like, "What? I had a financial plan, very specific plan. Here's the plan." And in my plan, she was going to work forever, and we just have daycare kids, and which there's nothing wrong with that. I didn't think of anything of it. And so she says, God's telling me that I need to be home. And what ended up happening is we decided originally that she was the assistant athletic director at the time, or lower school athletic director. She'd given up teaching, and they basically created this position for her so that she could coach 2 sports. And then when we had Ryan, we decided she's not going to coach anymore. So magically that position doesn't exist any longer. So she could go back to teaching. She doesn't particularly like teaching. And so, we prayed about it, thought about it, talked to my mentor, Jim, and came to the conclusion that we just got the M3, and now we had a car payment, and she had the A4, which I think we had that. Yeah, we had that paid off, and now what the heck are we going to do? And sure enough, I'd taken over the management position, started getting bonuses for that. The client base is growing. I was made a partner with Jim and Steve, my partners today. Well, Jim's retired, but they decided to bring me onto their team and make me a junior partner. And so was doing well enough. And although the numbers didn't really jive, I think I was making maybe 120 grand or something like that. And we decided we're going to make it work. And so now she gets to stay home with Ryan, which has been the absolute best decision I could have ever made. It wasn't part of my plan. I wanted her to work, and even if we just saved all that money, I had plans of saving her salary, and then we'd live off of mine, and we'd be rich as heck, and that didn't exactly work. So, but it's been a massive blessing in that she's been able to stay home with Ryan and take him to swim lessons, and he's a strong-willed child. He's not he's not bad, he's not good, he's just, he's strong-willed, and he's been a battle like most kids are, I'm sure. And so I decide, well, shoot, if we're not going to be, and this is what, 2000 and late 2011, early 2012. I decide, well, why am I driving 40 miles each way if you're not working anymore? And I know all our friends and everything's in Orlando, but why am I doing this? It's crazy. So I decided, let's just see if we can sell the house. And we knew we were going to get slaughtered. I mean, we listed the house for $150. I bought a $282. God knows how much money I spent on it and redoing tile and improving the house and even just painting. So I had the house prepared. I needed to get the stucco cracks and all that. So I had the exterior painted, had everything filled, grass was dialed in, house was good, and nicest house in the neighborhood by far. And even though it was the smallest house in the neighborhood, it was 1,822 square feet. So I call a realtor who I know of, and she comes out and she says, "Guys, I just want to prepare you for what this is worth." I said, "Yeah, I know. I've looked at the comps in the area. I've looked at I've been on MLS. I'm a research guy. I know I have an idea." And I said, "It's as far as I'm concerned, the house is probably worth about 130." So now remember, I'm a financial advisor. I'm a registered representative with FINRA and the SEC, and I have to report any kind of financial issues. So in other words, while everybody else is short selling their homes or foreclosing on their homes because they just don't feel like owning up to what they owe, and this drives me freaking crazy, I have to pay for it. And so we had been saving money because we knew at some point we were going to buy another house. So this house, we owe, I don't know, $200,000 on our $210,000 or something, and it's worth $125, $130, and we had it listed for $150, hoping we can find someone that just really wanted it, would pay cash for it. And sure enough, 7 days later, I told Michelle, I'm like, this is going to take us like 6 months to sell this thing. There's no way we're going to be able to sell it. So let's just put it out there at $150 and see what happens. 7 days later, we had a full price offer. So, and this is what tends to happen when I get, when I start to get focused on something, it gets done. And once I got focused on it, I sort of knew that it would happen. But 7 days was crazy, especially in 2011. The real estate market still hadn't really done much and was still on the downturn. So the house is sold. I'm like, holy crap! Now what are we doing? I don't know where I was going to live. And up here, there really aren't any communities where I live now. There aren't any communities for young couples to live. So I got to find somewhere to live quickly. So I'd been talking to a community here, Harbor Hills, about building a home, but we weren't ready to do that because I'm writing a $100-and-something thousand check to give some lady my house because it's worth squat. And so, we had to show up at the closing table with a $97,000 check in order to get out of our house. So there goes we're 30 years old. I mean, there goes a large chunk of pretty much all of our life savings at the time. So, I can't buy a house because I don't have a down payment for it. And you couldn't get a home, unless you were putting 20% down in 2011. So we were going to rent. Come up here, rent, save some money, and eventually build a house. So I found a place to rent. Ryan was 8, 9 months old. And so we move up here, and it was rough for her in the beginning because it's primarily retirees, but she had Ryan, and then through Ryan she met all these moms, and now she has some great friends. A bunch of them she began friends with have since moved away because there really isn't much here for young families. But now she has some great friends, and she's really connected to the area, and we have great neighbors and things like that. So we moved up, and we were renting in the place that we thought we were going to build, and it was a crappy house. Forgive me, it's a country club, so it was a decent community, but it was retiree heavy. The house was like 2,000 square feet with your typical white cabinets and blue countertops and crappy ceramic tile and stuff, Berber carpet. But we made it nice. The garage it had was like an oversized 2-car with a golf cart, so I was able to squeeze all 3 cars in there, and actually kind of improve that garage because I knew I put different lights and stuff, and I knew we were going to be there for a little while. So we were there for a year and a half, something like that. It was great. I mean, the yard was taken care of, which was why I'll never be able to cut the grass again. But it was a nice experience. We got connected with the area, and we're sort of working on plans to build a house. So we decide we're going to build a house. But first, before I even get there, I'd convinced myself that now that we have a baby, she had the A4, I still wanted an S4. I needed a new daily driver because the S2000 just wasn't cutting it. So I'd convinced her, well, I'll sell the S2000, I'm going to lease the S4, and I'll just put that money aside from the S2000 and just use that to pay the lease payments. And so somehow I convinced her to let me do that, and this was like a thing I dreamed up over the weekend. And so my plan was I'd have a long-term car that I lease, or a long-term car that I own, like the M3 I was going to keep forever, and then I would lease an S4 or an M5 or something practical that I could, sporty but practical I could drive around. So I'd gotten the S4, and right off the bat I really didn't like that car. But it was great. I mean, put the baby seat in the back, and I could take Rye wherever I wanted to. He still fit in the M3 too, but it was just easier for me to throw him in the back seat with a 4-door car. And so we started working on plans for a house, and we're going to build a house. And at the time we started, it was going to be like $130, $140 a square foot, and then. And I'm starting to do better and better and better at the office. I'm starting to make more and more money, and so, we got into the point where we were able to sort of put a down payment down. So then I started looking into financing, and construction to permanent financing is considerably more complicated, and a little bit considerably scarier to people who. It's not like I was writing a check for cash for the house. I mean, we're going to take out a mortgage, and young, successful couple, but we're not rolling, we're not balling here. And I had a $1,000 car payment on the darn M3 because I didn't have the cash to pay for it. I'd been power paying it down, but didn't, had some leverage. Although we were paying very little in rent, we had a car loan and a lease, and that made me really, really nervous being a financial planner, financial advisor. And we had taken a big chunk of our cash to pay off the debt on the other house. So we started working with the builder, and we knew it was going to be a little while before we could do it. But I'd found a bank that would do no PMI, 10% down, so that would afford us the ability to maybe stretch a little bit, because I knew my income I knew what my income projection would look like, at least to some extent. And so I knew that I didn't want to build a house, because if you build a house, you usually especially at the time, you would take a dip in value, and then in comparison to what it costs to build it, and then hopefully get some appreciation later. But what I didn't want to do was be looking for another house a couple of years later. So we wanted to build something that we could stay in for 10, 15 years. Well, that turned into a frickin' mansion. So it turned into, well, all I want like a 3-car garage, oversized 3-car, and then we took this one model, and I was working with the architect, and the walls kept going out, and the rooms kept getting bigger, and a bonus room sort of existed, and then the bonus room turned into an entire second floor. The garage turned into a 5-car oversized monster with a Versa lift, all this crazy stuff. And then I was like, well, I really need a porta cachet to pull in, and it turned into the house was going to be, I don't know, $800,000, which there's no way we could have afforded it at the time. We probably could have afforded it, but we wouldn't be able to afford anything else. So I'd have a 5-car garage, but no money to put any cars in it. And then we could only fit it on one lot, and that lot had like $100,000 premium. So, it was going to become this giant house, which can be awesome. And I could afford it now, but I couldn't afford it 4 or 5 years ago, whenever, I guess it'd be 3, 4 years ago, when we were doing it. And I still wouldn't want to have, that expensive of a house. It just, it just wouldn't feel comfortable. I wouldn't be able to save like I planned. So it's me, Michelle, Ryan. We're working on planning this whole future of building a house. We're thinking about a second child. And, Michelle's plugged in. I love it because I'm driving 10 minutes to my office. We find CrossFit, so we're going as a family to CrossFit every night. And obviously I wasn't quite as obsessed with cars, but I was still doing things like going to car meets and stuff like that. And Michelle doesn't go with me, but she'd be going to Disney or going to SeaWorld or running Ryan all over the place, going to watch her former teams. And I would go with them sometimes, but she likes to go do her thing, and then we'd always have dinner together, and are almost always at the house. And the nice thing about it now is, since I'm so close, I can go to Ryan's Kinder music recital and all this weird crap that she plugged him into. I can go to his swim lesson and watch him because now I'm close, because I was 15 minutes from the office. So we're working on building this house, and then this house right in front of us goes up for sale. And I'm like, that's pretty cool, this house. The house looks, on MLS, the pictures look good. I think it was like $450,000 or something like that. But it was on like 6 or 7 acres. And I started, which I don't want anything to do with, but I'd convinced myself, having some acreage would be really cool. There was like a little sort of barn structure. I could turn that into my own little CrossFit gym. And so I could work out there and then go work out, because I thought I was going to the CrossFit regionals. I thought I was going to be awesome, and so I sort of convinced myself. And then we could add on whatever garage we wanted to wherever, because there's all this land. So I called my buddy up, who's a realtor, and Ryan is, you figure he's 1.5, so he's running around everywhere, and he actually. I was thinking, well, man, this would be great. We get some ATVs, and he could run around in the field. We can do whatever we want. And so we go and look at the house by ourselves before I called my buddy who's a realtor, and we went and looked at it and said, this could work. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is our dream house. We're like, this could work, but it was like, we're going to tear the whole thing apart. I don't know how we're going to get the money to do this, but we're going to tear this whole thing apart, build a garage, do all this other stuff. But we were going to start, this was a decent shell. So my buddy, I call him, and I said, look, I don't feel comfortable going at this alone. Can you come up and represent me? And I'd like, the guy's not, I'm going to have to pay the 3% anyway, so the guy's not going to cut me any slack there, I bet. So I might as well have you come up and just help me through this process. I'd like your opinion. So we were ready to sort of make an offer and secure financing and the whole pre-approval, all that stuff. And we go in. And my buddy's like, it's okay. And I'm like, well, we were hemming and hawing on whether we should make an offer or not. So we had our plans for our house, but we were just going to kind of just not do those. I'd eat the $5,000 that I paid for the plans, and we hadn't made put any deposits down or anything like that for any of the lots. And so my buddy says, well, why don't I send you some listings on some other stuff? And I'm like, what? No. Don't confuse us. This is what we want. Well, he didn't listen to me. And so my wife, who has wanted to be on a lake her whole life, he sends me pictures of this house, afterwards, considering making an offer on this other house. And I said, Michelle, you got to look at this house. So I emailed it to her. And she goes and drives by it, and I didn't even know she was going. This is the house we're in now. And so we're going to build a house, then we're going to buy a house, now we're looking at a different house. But we were going to buy that other house, so we really didn't want to confuse anything by even looking at a different place. And so she drives by, and it's on a lake, and so I'm looking at the lake right now. And it's in a cul-de-sac in the back of the neighborhood. There's trees everywhere, and it's pretty nice back here. But there's a little ghetto around here. This is probably the nicest house around, and it was listed for 500 grand, so a lot cheaper than, a little bit more expensive than the other house with the acreage, but the house is fantastic. So it just fit our style, suited us. And so this little old lady comes out and sees Michelle sort of peeking at the property. She says, "Hey, what's going on?" And what's going on? And Michelle says, "Wow, I love your house." She said, "Well, we'll come in and see it." She goes, takes her on a tour, then Michelle calls me, and I'm like, "Well, I want to come see it." So I come and look at it, and I liked the house, but there were 3 prerequisites. Not my wife's prerequisites, but my prerequisites. One was 3+ car garage, didn't have that. Flat lot, doesn't have that. And no trees, doesn't have that. So I was a little reluctant because it didn't have any of the things that I wanted. So, but I could tell, I mean, she had stars in her eyes. I mean, this place was perfect. And I really, really liked the place. There's a 2,000 square foot basement below us here that's unfinished that I'm going to do at some point. There's room to put another garage. It's going to cost a lot of money, but to add on to the garage. And so we did our homework, and we decided, okay, we're going to buy the house. We're going to try to buy the house. And so, Michelle's in love with this place. And I became sort of, she convinced me, I decided I really liked it too. I think this is going to be perfect. So we make an offer. My buddy says, "Look, man, this house is not going to appraise at 450 or 500." So we make an offer at 450. And the lady's insulted. She's like, "No, I think she paid like $700,000 to build this place." But this is in late 2011, early 2012. And she, mid 2012. And so she was like, "I'm getting an appraisal." So she goes out, gets an appraisal, and the appraisal comes in at 419. And she's like, "Oh crap." So, no, 409 it came in at, yeah. So she had it listed for 500, which she thought was a rip. And then we were offering 450, which we were happy to get it. We wanted to buy it at 500. We were going to buy it at 500. We thought it was a decent price. And so the problem is all the foreclosure comps and short sale comps drove the prices of everything down. So long story short, over lots of negotiating, not by me, but my realtor, we ended up buying the house for 400 grand. So we got there's 2,800 square feet up top. There's 2,000 square feet in the bottom. So it's like 4,500, I think, square feet under air. Oversized garage, which of course you guys have all seen tons about the garage. And now we got our house. So we got Ryan, who's awesome, killing it in everything he does. That kid can shoot a basketball like nothing you've ever seen at his age. That kid you've seen in those viral video shooting, he's just as good, if not better. And I got Michelle. She's awesome. And we've got the perfect setup, perfect family. So now now we're in the house. It's time to start working on number 2. So I devise a new contract. You guys are going to think I'm the worst human being ever. But this was my time to get a 911 Carrera S, which is my dream. The only problem is I got an S4 lease that I'm stuck with. I got an E92 M3 Coupe. And I knew in order to get to the ultimate sort of setup that I wanted, which was a M3 daily driver and a 911 weekend car, that I was going to have to take a backwards process here. I was going to have to trade the M3, get the Carrera S, and then when the lease was up on the S4, then I would get an M3 and have a daily driver. So the contract with her was, "I'll give you another baby." I leveraged these decisions if I can get the car of my dreams, the 911. She said, "Well, I thought the S2000 was the car of your dreams. I thought the S4 was the car of your dreams. I thought the M3 was the car of your dreams." I said, "Yeah, but my real car of my dreams is the Carrera S." So she let me get that car. And then I got that in February of 2014, ordered it before then, 6 months before that. And then we ended up having Kate in August of 2014. That's when I had my OCD meltdown after Kate, and got rid of the Carrera S and got the GT3, got rid of the S4 and got the M3. So I have the sort of the cars that I'm stuck with now because she has the upper hand. We have a contract signed in blood where I can't get any new cars. But so Kate is born, and I wanted a boy. I didn't want anything to do with a girl. I don't know what to do with a girl. I have nothing in common with girls. I mean, Michelle's like a boy. She's a tomboy. She's playing sports and running around and taking nature hikes with Ryan and playing with his friends and stuff and jumping in the lake and fishing and stuff like that. So she's more of a boy than I am. And she loves the outdoors and things like that. So Kate comes, and at first I can't even hold her because I'm freaking out from my OCD meltdown. But now that little baby, holy crap. You see her in the garage and some of the pictures and some of the videos and stuff. She's a heart melter. So now I have my little girl, have my little pride and joy son. Wife is beautiful, fantastic, awesome woman. And after this sort of the OCD meltdown, I'm making this video, and I can sort of unequivocally say that I couldn't be happier in life. Got a great job. I've got everything I could ever want, and those of you who don't think I spend any time with the family, I'm with them all the time. They're with me out in the garage all the time. We go to CrossFit every day together. We have lunch all the time together. They're over at my office all the time because we're so close. Today, my wife is out running around meeting with her sister and her family. So I do skip out on a lot of stuff. But like when I go to a meeting at the Ritz-Carlton or at at some hotel, they usually go with me, and they go play while I go work. I've clearly sort of let my priorities slip a little bit not too long ago, but my family is first and foremost. And my priorities, my marriage is first and foremost. My priorities are I believe to be in check, and I'm trying very, very hard to make sure that because I'm real passionate about this Obsessed Garage idea that I'm putting together and making these videos, and I'm really, really focusing to make sure that and you guys will have to bear with me because I'm not going to be able to post videos every second of every day. I try to fit that in and keep it prioritized in the right spot. And so that's one little piece of advice if you're watching any of these videos, that if you're 22 and you're dating some chick and you're about to get married in a few years and have kids, don't let your priorities get out of whack if you're an obsessed maniac, passionate person like me. So that's the story of how I met Michelle, Ryan, Kate, the whole thing. I know there was a lot of cars sprinkled in there. Actually, I clearly talked about 75% about cars. But to me, that as I build the family, as I built this amazing little family unit that we have, the cars have been part of the process. Have been the major sort of, I wouldn't call it investment, the major allocation of cash other than our house. That have sort of been a part of it. Watching Ryan and some of his videos point out whose car's who when he's 12, 13 months old, and say, "Daddy's blue," and he'd love going riding in the M3, and he's been out in the garage there, sort of experiencing with me. He's kind of at that stage now where he's off doing other things, but for the longest time, he'd come out and wash the car with me every time. Stuff like that, I think, is what it's all about. And yes, I do spend on this passion and this hobby, but I try to spend more time with the family. I'm just, this will sound arrogant, but I'm just super organized, and I don't overbook myself. And I make time to relax, but when I'm doing something, I'm all in. This is me, all or nothing. That's my sort of motto. And so the family, my family is most important to me, and if I've sort of misconstrued that message on some of the videos, maybe this will help you. If you hate me or think that I'm a jerk, maybe this will help you think a little bit less It'll make you think that I'm not quite as bad of a human being as I come across. I've got a lot of ideas for the site. This is one of the videos that I really wanted to make, sort of telling my story of how I met my wife and my two kiddos, and the stories just being written about Kate. I mean, she's only 9 months, 10 months old, so I'm interested to see, as you might imagine, everybody would be, what happens with the family, and where do we end up? Where does this Obsessed Garage thing go? Where does this, my YouTube sensation go? But certainly, if it affects my family, then I'm going to have to bail on it. But for the time being, I'm having a blast sharing this whole experience with you guys. Stay tuned for more stuff. I've got to finish a bunch of other videos about my bio. But like I said, stay tuned for I got a lot of cool stuff coming up. And I got some really sort of cool ideas to sort of take you along this journey of my crazy car guy life. And I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you interact, and I hope you reach out. And I've spoken to so many of you on the phone about your personal finances, and hopefully I've helped some of you out, and I want to continue to do that. So I've made some friends along the way, and hopefully there's quite a few more friends that I just haven't met yet. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more stuff. Thanks, guys.